morning, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. In a move that's sending shockwaves across the nation, President Joe Biden has commuted the sentences of 37 death row inmates, including individuals convicted of severe crimes such as child murder, just days before Christmas. Among those granted clemency are Thomas Sanders, who murdered a 12-year-old girl, and Jorge Oliver Torres, convicted of sexually assaulting and killing 2 young girls. This act of leniency reduces the number of individuals on federal death row to only 3. Now, out of those 3, 2 of them committed mass shootings or mass killings, one of a Jewish synagogue and 2 of a black church. Biden, an opponent of the death penalty, has stated that it should be reserved for terrorism and hate-driven mass murder cases as part of his effort to halt future federal executions. Biden's decision aligns with the administration's moratorium on such executions. Additionally, Biden granted clemency to 1,500 people and pardoned 39 others recently, including his son Hunter Biden, as we all know, who faced prison time for gun-related charges. The president's actions have sparked backlash, yet he maintains that his son was a target of political motivated prosecutions. Of course, you don't need any excuses to pardon your son. Again, I'm pretty sure the vast majority of Americans would have done it. It's the fact that you consistently double, triple, and quadruple down stating that you wasn't going to do it. Even the press secretary stated that you wasn't going to do it. You probably shouldn't have not said anything, but the acts and this misuse of power that Joe Biden is playing nowadays, I think he's definitely unhinged. He's off his rocker, so to speak, and he's doing whatever the hell he wants to do. As Biden prepares to leave office in less than a month, left-wing media outlets are beginning to question where his administration went wrong. Why question? You already know where he went wrong. For 4 years, conservative media has been critical of Biden's handling of the presidency, noting issues such as cognitive decline and lack of media scrutiny. During his time in office, Biden performed fewer press conferences and interviews compared to past presidents, with a tightly controlled inner circle managing his public appearances. Major global events like the Taliban taking control of Afghanistan, which is just such a debauchery. It was just total chaos. We've never seen America look like we was essentially tuck-tailing and running in such a mass fashion. Have we had some remnants of that throughout military history? Of course we've had. But now, because of social media, cameras, technology, it just seems much, much horrific the way that we tuck-tailed and ran out of Afghanistan like we were being overran in that region as well. But I digress. There's so much animosity there for me. I don't want to get it to make it more personal than what it already is. Now, he already had fewer interviews and conferences than any other president, so this should have been some indicators that his cognitive decline is actually a real thing, let alone this quote unquote right wing or conservative rhetoric that, Democrats were stating. But Putin's invasion of Ukraine and increased terror activities in the Middle East marks Biden's tenure. The perceived incompetence and controversies that led to a Republican landslide in the recent elections, including capturing the Electoral College and popular vote. Trump's return to office is anticipated to restore strong leadership. Again, we should be banking and hoping and praying for the betterment of the country. If Donald Trump is the right man, so be it. We want that. We want strong leadership. We want America to be first instead of putting everybody else above us. I'm not stating that America shouldn't help any other country. I'm not stating that. But we should be looking out for our best interests first. The same way you run your home. You think about yourself, you think about your family, then you think about everyone else. And that is the way I believe that they're attacking these issues that has stemmed from the Democratic Party. The Ethics Committee has released a report presenting a substantial evidence that former Representative Matt Gaetz engaged in illicit activities, including paying for sex with multiple women and using illegal drugs. Notably, the report indicates that Gaetz paid a 17-year-old for sex in 2017, despite his resignation from Congress earlier this year. Among these allegations, Gaetz has consistently denied any wrongdoing. I'm just trying to figure out this case as more information comes out. Because as I'm looking at this, the story says that the House Ethics Committee report into a former Republican Representative Matt Gaetz found he paid over $90,000 for sex, including with a minor, handed out illicit drug party favors, and more bombshell details. Now, again, I know some of you, once you hear the age 17, you're not going to think, that's a minor, etc. But again, don't forget that in some states, I believe the laws I've seen or heard is 16, that the actual child, in my opinion, a child can give consent. And some can actually give consent with parents' approval. So again, I'm not stating that he's committed this crime, because all this is alleged until proven in a court of law. But there's a lot of allegations, and then his actions of not only stepping down from Congress, but turning his back on the proposal that Donald Trump gave him for a cabinet position in his administration. A lot of things are just not lining up for me. Okay, again, there's smoke, there's fire, there's dots. You got to connect them. I'm not there just yet. I have to wait for more information to come out to really make a final decision to really have me lean one way or another. Because people have been accused of all sorts of heinous things, and we found out later on it wasn't even true. So again, jury is still out. The guy's not even in court yet, but I definitely believe he's going to be charged. Him being convicted, that's another thing. Now, and of course, the feds are at it again. The Federal Reserve has projected that 2/4 point interest rate cuts next year, reflecting concerns about rising inflation. Well, no, the Fed anticipate inflation closing this year at 2.4% and reaching 2.5% in 25. These projections suggest a cautious approach due to persistent inflation and a more robust labor market than expected. And we've seen the price of gas rise and fall, but for about the past week, especially in low states, the Houston area, especially Texas, the big oil giant, even gas there is almost $3 a gallon. And we're talking about regular gas. We're not talking about mid-grade or premium. We're talking about regular, okay? And so that's very, very expensive when you have the oil giant, even their gas prices at $3. Now, if you live in California, hats off to you. You guys are paying $5 or $6 a gallon. That is international prices. When you go and travel, they're paying $7, $8 for a liter of gas. So when they hear Americans, as they state, cry, and I say it's our concern that gas is high, but what we're doing. We're complaining. We don't like high gas. We don't like anything to be high, right? Some things we understand, technology, houses, some things we just accept that these things are more expensive in certain areas or because of the technology or the advancement. But food, gas, we're like, come on, it really shouldn't be that high. So again, but when you travel abroad, believe me, gas is even more expensive than the US by far. Okay. Now, this dirtbag, allegedly, Australia has approved the extradition of former US Marine Corps pilot Daniel Duggan to the United States. Duggan is accused of illegally training Chinese military pilots between 2010 and 2012 without the appropriate license. If convicted, he could face up to 60 years in prison. Duggan denies the allegation, and his family has expressed shock and heartbreak over the extradition decision. Hopefully, these are just alleged and he didn't commit these crimes, because again, 60 years on death row, 60 years in prison because you train, I'm not going to say our foe, I'm not going to say our enemies, but a country where we've had very divisive talks and dealings and interactions with, we kind of go back and forth with China. Is this an act of terrorism? Is this anti-American? Because don't forget, this young man, he renounced his American citizenship. That's why he was in Australia, but he was doing dealings in business all around the world using his skills and training that he learned in the Marine Corps. Hoorah to Marines. Because I'm a former Marine, and I didn't want to do this story because, again, I wouldn't think that a Marine would do anything close to this, but then I look at certain things around the nation. And I know a lot of people are indifferent about the whole Daniel Penny thing. But again, some of these things, some people are like, oh, he's a hero because, Jordan Neely was terrifying people on the train, and at any given moment he could have done something. Can we be truthful? Regardless if you believe Daniel Penny did the right thing or not, Jordan Neely never touched anyone. And here is my continuous argument with that particular case. Not the counter argument if Jordan Neely was white and Daniel Penny was black. Not that argument. We keep hearing that. But are we going to go around every time somebody's in a public space on a bus or a subway or train or whatever have you? And now a plane is different, right? Because you got to get up, but trains, subways, things of that nature on the street, you have freedom of movement, right? You're not locked into one seat and it's a small confined space like a plane. So I'm going to exclude planes. But when I look at this, he came on the train, threw down his jacket, said, I'm hungry, I'm tired. He said some other things, and I don't care if I die. There has been many accounts of witnesses stating that he never threatened anyone. He was saying that he was hungry and he's willing to die and this, that, and the other. Because again, we understand that Jordan Neely actually suffered from mental issues. But I want you to focus on that he never touched anyone and he never came in close proximity to hurt anyone. And as a Marine, if someone's threatening, do I subdue them if they've never? Oh, but if he gets too close, then it's already too late. He was a homeless man who was frail in body, who had mental issues. Now, of course, no one knows if he had a weapon or not. And I know a lot of you already know his history. I think he was incarcerated or he was arrested like 40 something times, but a lot of homeless people are arrested. I'm not giving pathway to the aggregated fear infused environment that he supposedly created. And that's why Daniel Penny took charge and quote unquote subdued him, killed him. But I'm just looking at this from a broad spectrum. Are we going to unalive every single body in a public space who comes out and do empty threats, but they're non-aggressive? That's my only question. You can leave it in the comments below. But this guy right here, hopefully these allegations aren't true, because that looks very, very bad. I wouldn't want this to be true at all, okay? Now, RFK slated to take the top spot at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services under President-elect Donald Trump, has expressed a desire to ban pharmaceutical companies from advertising drugs on television. He argues that such a ban is needed to address the chronic disease epidemic, noting that the U.S. is one of the only 2 countries that allow direct-to-consumer pharmaceutical advertising. I agree. You hear all these drugs and you take that to your provider, even though you've heard them say all of the side effects, and they say it very, very fast, like, nosebleed, throwing up, all of the side effects, like, it'll fix your glaucoma, but it will give you diarrhea. You have bleeding from the eyes. You have tightness of the chest. You're nauseated. You may vomit. Your knees may hurt. Shingles may come back. I mean, they have all these side effects. But again, they are advertising to who? They're not advertising to the clinics. They're not advertising to the hospitals or the doctors or those who can prescribe these. No, they're advertising to the American public. We don't know enough information about these drugs, let alone we're going to do the studies, go and read the trials of people who've taken these drugs, and what demographics were they? How tall were they? How big or small were they? All of these are very important. So again, these should be by the information of your provider if these drugs can help people with certain conditions. So I agree with that. I don't think they should be advertising that. Not at all. Some people may argue the fact that, well, if they don't advertise, we're not going to know about these drugs to give to our providers. And that's why we need for doctors and providers to be very well informed so they can give us the information and let us know the side effects as well. Now, in the automotive industry, Japanese automakers Nissan and Honda have announced plans to merge by 2026. The companies have signed a memorandum of understanding to establish a joint holding company aiming to optimize their supply chains and manufacturing processes to reduce costs. This merger is seen as a strategic move to stay competitive in the evolving automotive market. Now, of course, when these three companies merge, there are going to be a lot of people all around the world who are going to lose their job because they have to make it small, because Honda is going to be the parent company. In this so-called holding company, when you have all these additional LLCs and other formulations of business, Honda is still going to be head of the pack, okay? Because Mitsubishi, we already know that was a dying car maker. Nissan, they haven't been performing that well in the past 5 years. So this is a major move by Nissan and Mitsubishi executives to keep their money. Because I don't know anybody, unless it was an old Mitsubishi, who's like, I just went out and bought a new Mitsubishi sedan. Yeah, no one's really doing that. But Honda is a conglomerate. They're definitely going to soak up Mitsubishi and as well as Nissan. And again, I just hope the best for that merger. But I know there are a lot of people around the world, especially in the U.S., going to lose their jobs behind this. But again, people merge because some of these companies are failing businesses. I wonder what some of the vehicles would be renamed to. Would it still be Mitsubishi Galant, Nissan Maxima, Honda Accord, or would it be a Honda Accord Galant Maximus? I don't know. I'm just making stuff up as I go. Okay, I'm just making stuff up as I go. President-elect Donald Trump has announced plans to launch a large-scale advertising campaign to educate Americans on the dangers of fentanyl. He believes that by highlighting the adverse effects of the drug, the campaign can deter its use and save lives. Absolutely. I think he definitely should do that, because I was watching a documentary and they put like a pinch of fentanyl. Somebody had a glove on though. Put a pinch of fentanyl and it stated this is enough to kill, a grown man supposedly. But it was literally like, I don't know, 30 grains of salt. It was very small. And they were like, this is enough to kill a human man. Like, it was crazy. I'm like, that is not a lot. Because it kind of reminded me of the cocaine era where people used to do lines of cocaine all night. Just a party drug, people just partying. And of course, some people OD'd, but it was not as deadly as fentanyl and as addictive. So again, and we know the supply chains of fentanyl is coming by the way of China into Mexico, and then through the cartels into the US. So again, he should definitely have the public to be aware of fentanyl. Even though fentanyl essentially, if I can recall correctly, was using for pain medicine. But again, you have trained professionals who put in the right dosage for your body weight and your condition. So again, there's a lot to be said there. Now, in a separate development, Trump has reiterated his interest in acquiring Greenland, describing it as a national security priority. This followed his previous attempts to purchase the territory during his early term, which were dismissed by the Danish leaders. They were like, no, Greenland is not for sale, Donald Trump. Greenland is not for sale. And they just kind of 10 toes down on that. And he's like, this is for national security of America, because there's ways that many countries, okay, China, Israel of Russia, Iran, North Korea, can come by the way of those green owls to attack or have strategic, FOBs, forward operating bases there, where we don't have access in these so-called international waters. So again, he's been very strategic. It looked like he's really getting, his advisors are really talking to him each and every day, because he's come out each and every day with more things he want to do to secure America and make America more profitable. He's not talking about illegal immigration. He's talking about national security on a high scale. Because don't forget about the Panama Canal, because we talked about that before. I want to get to that. The Panama Canal, because the reason why he's thinking about reclaiming the Panama Canal, because America built the majority of the Panama Canal, if not all, or funded wise. But China has 2 ports on the Panama Canal. One in the beginning of the Panama Canal, if you was leaving America and going towards Panama. And then they have one at the end. So one basically sits in the Pacific Ocean and another one in the Caribbean. But China has two ports. And this is what China does. China's, in my opinion, China's economic colonizers. They have ports in Africa, right? By the way of these blood loans that they were giving Africans in these different African states, these African countries. And they were like, okay, we'll give you 50 million, $100 million and pay that back in 5 years. And if you don't pay that back, you're gonna have to allow us to build a port. Okay, yeah, we'll take that loan. And of course they knew that they wasn't gonna pay back the money. So China started building ports in China. In Africa. Not only that, they have security forces in Africa. You guys should really look this stuff up. There's a lot going on in the world. And believe me, when it comes to economics and security, China is doing a lot of things very publicly, but they're coming in with flowers in their hand. They're like, we just want to help you guys build. We know that those white colonizers did you so bad. But we're going to put a port here and we're going to have a police station here. Because don't forget about the police station that they had in New York, right, out of Beijing. I'm just saying, make the connections. Now, in Texas, a 50-year-old man named Daryl Schultz, that's SCHULTZ, was shot and killed by police after driving a pickup truck through the Killeen Mall, injuring 5 people. And what's significant about the Killeen Mall is that you have Fort Hood that's located in Killeen, Texas. The incident began with reports of an erratic driver leading to a high-speed chase that ended with Schultz crashing through the mall's doors. Authorities have clarified that there was no active shooter situation and investigations are ongoing. When I read what seems to be non-American names, I always look them up to see where they derive from. Where country could they be from? Schultz. Okay, yeah. So the surname Schultz originated in Germany and is derived from the title, don't know how to pronounce that, which means village headman or judge. So I just wanted to point that out. And I'm not stating or alluding that people with that last name, or again, for my own research, I want to know where some of these people, where their family, where their descendants, where are they from? One of those extra pieces of information that I would like to know. That's just me, okay? Now, in the Middle East, a missile fired from Yemen by Iran-backed Houthi rebels struck Tel Aviv, wounding 16 people. Israel military failed to intercept the missile, which hit a district of the city, causing residents to evacuate their homes. This marks the second such attack within days, escalating tensions in the region. There's a lot going on in the Middle East right now when it comes to Israel, and whether it be, Palestinians and Gaza and Hamas, or you have Lebanon, as well as Hezbollah. Then you have Iran and Yemen with the Houthi. Again, if you guys ever read the Bible, it's this ongoing war the entire time in the Middle East. And a lot of people have been stating for 50, 60 years, when are the conflicts in the Middle East ever going to end? When are they ever going to end? Because there's so many complexities of all of these wars, okay? And it seems like, on one front, it's the terrorists, it's the jihadists, it's the Jewish, it's the Jews, it's the Muslims, it's the Palestinians. It's just so much. And at the end of the day, as a person who care about life, I just hate the fact that you have these governments, you have these factions, you have these groups, and they have to know that innocent people are dying each and every day behind this. Is there a peaceful resolution? And people have been talking about this for decades. I just hate the loss of life on such a massive scale that no one is really to the point okay, enough. We're going to have to figure out how to live together, because they're definitely dying together. And a lot of the innocents are being killed by what the people in power and decisions that they're making. Concerns are rising over Chinese growing influence near strategic global trade routes, particularly the Panama Canal. Chinese investors in infrastructure projects around the canal have prompted discussions about potential implications for international trade and U.S. national security. While Panama retains ownership of the canal, China's involvement in surrounding ports and logistics have garnered attention from global leaders, especially the likes of Donald Trump, saying, well, we built the Panama Canal, and President Carter gave ownership of the Panama Canal to the Panamanians. And now we see that China has a large influence of trade, and they have 2 ports on the canal themselves. Yeah, we're looking at taking that back. Yeah, we're taking that back. No snatchies, no snatchies. We're giving that back. There's a term that we used to use when I was small. Don't be a giver, okay? That means you give something to someone, you take it back. And the Panamanians are crown foul, but again, if you're allowing things, a lot of undercutting deals with China, and we find out, verifiable evidence that you've been getting paid under the table to allow them to operate in a particular manner, then yeah, it should be taken back. That's just my 2 cents on that. Now, in a tragic incident in New York City, a homeless woman was set on fire while sleeping on a subway train, leading to her death. Now, this woman was homeless, by the way. Police have arrested a suspect, a Guatemalan migrant, illegal immigrant, who alleged used a lighter to ignite the victim's clothing. The horrifying act was recorded, showing the suspect observing the burning woman calmly. Listen to this. The horrifying act was recorded, showing the suspect observing the burning woman calmly. Investigators are ongoing, and identities of both the victims and the suspect have not been released. There's some dangerous people in this world. And I'm not saying Guatemalans, Hispanic. No, there's some dangerous people in this world, and no one cares about human life. There's just so much chaos and evil occurring all at the same time. And we just have all these, there's like very dangerous people just doing these acts of violence unprovoked for no reason. Like, if that's the case, whoever are committing these crimes, go back to your country and commit them. You come into a very inclusive, very broad a country where we accept everybody. And I believe that these acts, he should be on a death penalty. That I'm just gonna leave it as that, because again, this lady who was homeless, she was unsheltered, she was on the subway, and he lit her on fire. Unprovoked altogether. Lastly, an Israel airstrike targeted a residential building in Gaza, resulting in the deaths of 7 Palestinians, including 4 children. 16 others were injured in the attack. This incident adds to the over 45,000 Palestinian deaths reported during the 14-month conflict in Gaza. Israel maintains that its military operations targeted militants and hold Hamas responsible for civilian casualties due to their tactics. Negotiations for a potential ceasefire between Israel and Hamas are reported underway. So yeah, there's still war. People still dying. I think the ceasefire is over because they're firing at each other again. And it goes on and on and on. And everybody that I've been hearing, this mass media, legacy media, social media, independent media, is just really call for a ceasefire altogether, because again, the massive amount of people, they're losing their lives. This evening, we'll reconfirm. I will have Chicago Red, aka P. Ray, that will break down the situation in Chicago behind Brandon Johnson's stake against Tom Homan, the incoming border czar, and the rhetoric that he's been speaking that he's going to lock up Tom Homan. No, you won't. You're going to be locked up, and they might deport you as well. They might just deport you where you want to. I mean, he's an American, so you can't deport him nowhere, but you can deport him to Central America. Why not? If you want to protect him so bad, deport him there. You guys have a great and wonderful day. Thank you guys for joining me. This is Blacklogic.